All right, welcome. I have Mindy with me today, Mindy Mayhew, and it's been so great collaborating with her and getting to know her. She's an incredible woman who helps people to use the gifts that they've been given in this life to then be able to serve others in higher service and in entrepreneurship. So welcome, Mindy. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hello, it's so good to be here. I am doing so good. So excited to be here.
So it's great, actually. Our connection, we started getting to know each other because we were originally just kind of drawn to each other. But what started to happen is we realized that we had noticed some of these mental health oriented challenges that come up in entrepreneurship. Just sharing her experience, her sharing her experience with me and me sharing my experience as well. We realized this is hard work, not even just being an entrepreneur, because that's challenging enough already, but being someone who's waking up to your intuitive gifts and your sensitivity as well, which in and of itself can be a mental health challenge. So I'm so excited to bring what I know about mental health together today with a guest who knows so much about the entrepreneurship side of this and how to do, how to show up and serve as an intuitive entrepreneur in a way that is true to who you are and true to your energy, true to the way that you are made.
Absolutely. And the
Yes.
intuitive journey as well, kind of coming out of that spiritual closet, as we say, and having your friends and family understand that you're now an entrepreneur who is, launching and creating from this intuitive spiritual place, and how to maneuver the ego mind with that. Because I think a lot of us and a lot of my clients will say, I don't just want to show up as the spiritual one, because everyone is spiritual. So how do I set myself apart without putting myself on a pedestal? Or how do I put myself on the pedestal and just own it and empower it? So there's this balance there. We're going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. 1 second. I don't even know how that got there.
Right.
But my first question I wanted to ask you is, and I can share as well, but what have you found has been some of the mental health challenges that you've experienced as this type of entrepreneur? And I know you touched on it a little bit already as well.
Yeah. So the mental health part, I think, is the pressure. I mean, there's so much pressure to not only show up online and show up empowered and show up as an expert and show up, as this elevated version of yourself. We're told all the time, you have to be the next level version. And it's like,
That's a good point.
what the heck is that? Like, what is that? And why can't I be where I am now and still see the abundance and still see the results for my clients? So I think the pressure to elevate is very not talked about very much in the entrepreneurship journey. And from business coaches and success coaches, they're the ones preaching that and just saying, you need to rise up. And it's like, I'm already risen. I thought I was doing good, So there's this pressure to meet this standard that's kind of a mystery. They don't really explain what it feels like to be there, or, what it's
Yeah.
like to be in this aligned space. They always say you need to empower yourself, get aligned. And it's like, I kind of thought I was, though.
I am so glad that you brought this up because this is so true. And this is actually something that, just like vulnerable share, I'm going through in my life right now too as an entrepreneur. And you and I have talked about it a little bit too, of just, there's this pressure to sort of heighten yourself and puff yourself up and show up as this like expert who knows it all. But sometimes it's a bit of a confusion in the mind, because you're like, do I not get to be where I'm at right now? Do I not get to be in this current stage of growth in this season of my life as this person that I am? And what I have found, honestly, this is just like my own subjective experience, like mental health experience of this pressure, is I've noticed that whole idea of show up as your higher self, and you just put it in such good words that made me realize, wow, this is a thing. But this higher self concept ends up feeling like you're supposed to become someone else. Like, I'll have the money, I'll have the followers or whatever it is that you desire out of life. Like, it could be so many things. I even noticed that sometimes I felt like I couldn't have other things that were like not related to my business because I wasn't successful enough as an entrepreneur. But
Oh, yeah.
meanwhile, a lot of those things that I want have nothing to do with entrepreneurship. Like, it could be, a lot of the times it's going places, it's trips, as if, if I don't reach this higher state where I'm an expert and everyone's like, wow, you're the go-to expert, then I can't enjoy the rest of my life. And that was my personal mental health challenge, was I felt like I was restricting my authentic growth to try to be someone who had already grown and didn't have any more growth to do, which is so interesting because I'd love to hear your opinion actually, but when it comes to growth, like, do you ever feel like you get to a point where it's enough? I haven't hit it yet personally, but I'd love to hear your point of view on that.
I think it's really interesting because what came to mind when you asked that was like productivity and rest and being able to say that's enough for the day. There's nobody to say, okay, clock out, you're done for the day, just go enjoy your life. There's nobody to tell you that. So in entrepreneurship and business ownership and being a CEO, we end up being on 24/7. Like even when you're taking a bath, you're like, I have to meditate to channel this message, so I have a post for tomorrow, you know? Or, okay, I'm going to meditate, but it's at a means to an end. Like there's always this, and I got chills all over when I said that because, you know, there's so much comparison going on. Even as an intuitive, there's always someone who can channel more directly. There's always someone who can channel more quickly. There's always someone with more clients than you. So there's this comparing yourself to the people who are out there making these posts all the time. And you're just kind of like, where are they getting all these ideas? And so I have to go meditate so I can match that. So there's that comparison thing that I'm never going to be as good as them, or I have these people surrounding me that are good, like they're really good. And then here I am as little old me. And how do I match that energy? Or of course, stand out, as we get told online, stand out online. And again, that empowerment, like be more, show up more. And I say this because I have purchased coaches, and that's the only thing that she really had to say was just empower yourself more. You need to show up better, almost.
I see
And
what
I
you're
just
saying.
was kind of like, I don't get that. I wasn't in that place to understand that. So going back to your original question of feeling like there's enough success to be okay. And I have had a lot of mental health stuff around that because, you know, we're also surrounded by family who do work 9 to 5 and, you know, who are in jobs. And then they see us and they're like, did you get a lot done today? Are you being productive today? Did you make a lot of money today? You know, so again, it goes hand in hand with productivity, and the pressure, I don't know about you, but for me has sent me into these depressive like whirlwinds of just laying in bed all day being like, if I don't do it, I'm going to die. And if I do it, I'll probably crash. And when I crash, then I can't do more. And so there is that mental health whirlwind of like, am I going to be able to hit the bar that I've set for myself? And how can I hit that bar and feel okay and be in alignment and meditate daily when all these other people are like really high up there and they're really just killing it? And that will send me into a deeper spiral. So I get online to make a post, or I get online to show up empowered, and I see other people doing it. And then I'm like, wait, what was I going to say? Because they are doing it so well. I drowned myself out. And that's been a huge deal for me. And I talk about it openly all the time. And something I tell my clients is don't read other people's stuff. If you're here to create, write it somewhere and then copy and paste it to your Facebook, because the moment that, or a social media platform of your choice, because when you go on to post, there will be someone else's post there. And it's better to already have the content and put it out there as a creation rather than as a response to somebody else. And we talked about that a little bit too in the coaching world. So many people are like calling out the coaching industry, calling out. So you're surrounded by all these people who are calling us out. And we're like, I'm just barely getting by. Like, I'm just trying to be okay.
That's so true, actually. That's so true. We're just trying to figure it all out. There was something that you said that had really sparked a thought that I had, and I can't remember what it is. There's kind of like a loop. And for the first year of my business, I genuinely did not know that other coaches were experiencing it too. So I thought I was very isolated. I, at the time, was doing my business full time. So I lived alone. My whole life was the coaching industry, and it was my first year in it. So I hadn't built a framework to help understand like the coaching world is not your whole world. So it was my whole world for a little while. And I remember thinking to myself, is this normal? Like, is it normal for me to be thinking all the time, how can I show up as a higher self? How can I improve myself? How can I improve? It was constant pushing. And it's like you said, I remember taking a bath and trying to just ground down. And my whole body was like, but how will this increase your income? Like, if you relax in the tub, will this increase your income so you can show up as an expert? So it was just this like loop that kept me always overachieving, always pushing myself. And I started my own business to get away from overachieving.
Right.
Like that was supposed to be the whole concept. Before I went into my business, that's where depression came from in my life, was just pushing myself too hard, past, and this will bring us into our next topic, but past my energetic capacity.
Yeah.
And I would just burn out and recover. And the problem is that those patterns seemed normal to me. So that plus the coaching industry's noise and dynamic was really tough. But I'm so glad that you and I are talking about this, because even just hearing you say your side, I realize how this is not a lonely, isolating experience. We're all going through it too. We all go to create something and then see something on the news feed and go, and like lose sight of what you even wanted to say because you're now comparing, or sometimes it's not even comparison. Sometimes it's even just, I opened my news feed, it's too noisy and distracting, and now the creativity is gone, or the inspired idea has gone into my subconscious for a while.
Right.
And so I love what you said. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that really good advice that you gave was, and that I'm going to use, is copying, like writing it somewhere else and then copying and pasting the content to the platform so that the energy and dynamics of the platform don't get in the way of the creation.
Absolutely. Because what you said too is the noise of it. You
Yes.
go on there and automatically see the stories up on top, and then you see your feature photos here, and then you see the previous post there. And it's really easy for just that to just be very sporadic and have the energy of all those things get in the way. So that's really intense for a lot of us. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot now.
I hate when that happens.
It'll come to me if it's important. I trust that.
It'll, yeah, exactly. It'll resurface. But it actually, I was thinking we could go into energetic capacity, because I know that you have a lot of knowledge that I do not have. So I know nothing about peak potential, energetic capacity. So I would love to hear from you. What is, should we start with energetic capacity or peak potential?
I think they're kind of one and the same.
Oh, okay.
I mean, peak potential would be that feeling of being in alignment. And it's just another word for that. And it's just that feeling that, and I'm hoping that we've both been in this aligned space before, where you just start feeling like things are really fitting together.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle piece that just matches perfect, and it's all beautiful and gorgeous. And, it comes in spurts. But we have control over it. And this is about being in manifestation energy, being in the art of allowing, being in this surrender where, when you meditate and you have this really beautiful experience and it's just for you, and I think that as coaches, we get lost sometimes in the fact that we are meditating in order to help people. I'm meditating in order to reach people. I'm meditating in order to understand people and to reach my clientele and to grow my audience and all of these things. But on Friday, I actually had this hugely beautiful experience of channeling and in a meditative state. And I just was like, you know what? It's all going to be fine. Like, it really is just going to be fine. If I go and refurbish my furniture right now, that's fine. If I go take a bath right now, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, when we are meditating, it is for us to reach our peak potential, to reach that magnitude of our manifestation energy. And that's where the clients feel magnetized, and we're not out there pushing to go and grab the people or to go and make a post that finds people. It's making a post that's like, I just had this experience, or, I'm just thinking on this topic, and it just comes off of your tongue so easily. To me, that would be peak potential, is just feeling like, it's hard to describe because,
no, I so get
there's
it.
really no words for it.
Yes, it's a feeling.
What it is.
Yes, I know exactly the feeling you're talking about, because I have noticed this in my life. So I'm just loving this conversation so much. I've noticed this in my life where I'm like, I seem to get into a state where, and it is, and like, I can't help but notice that the psychology part happens first and then the life events happen. And it's pretty obvious actually, because it starts with this feeling of security within myself of just like, oh, what bothered me last month, I see it differently. My vulnerabilities are still there, but I'm not, like I just start to feel a little more like all I almost just said all 4 feet are on the ground. Both feet are on the ground. I don't know. Apparently I have 4 legs. Anyway, but both feet are on the ground. I just feel grounded and secure in who I am. And like, I don't need to prove anything to anyone. And that's my experience of it, of course, but that's what it feels like. And then I start to notice, whoa, like things are starting to come together and I'm not working very hard. And then that also has its own sense of reward too. And so you have this like, kind of like a dopamine hit from it, but less intense. Like, it's just this feeling of like, life is good and it deserves to be good and it's great. And you're not even questioning it or sabotaging it. It just feels so good. And then the more that you allow it to be good, the more good comes in. So I actually know exactly what you mean, because I didn't know there was a term for this. I was just like, there's a mental state that takes some work to get into, but it's also natural, but it takes some work to get into because of life.
Well,
And
what I've taught
helps.
it to be is like unlearning and undoing, like non-action. It's a Taoist, kind of ancient Buddhist Chinese theology, is like tapping into the oneness of source. Is a lot of unlearning. You have to take away a lot of the things that we have been like, ingrained to understand, like productivity equals success. There's no other way. And like you said, the more that I am in tune, the more that I'm in source energy, the more that I am in this dopamine state, the more nudges you get. And then the more nudges that you follow, the more breadcrumbs we're following from the universe to be like, this is the path of least resistance.
Oh my God.
And when you find that path, that's when you're in that peak potential. And, both of us are very lucky to be able to be doing our business full-time, or, as full-time as we can.
Yep.
And to be able to experiment with this, because like I said, like refurbishing furniture, it's not something I really thought about doing, but it's something that I have been nudged so much to do. And it feels like a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I have to unlearn that and take that away and just say, if this is what I'm nudged to do, F everything else, like all these opinions, they don't matter. I'm just going to do what I feel called to do. And if that's something totally back-asswards and off the wall, totally crazy, so be it, because that's what I'm called to do. And so it's important.
Oh, I love those conversations so much because, January of this year was something similar to me where I had a nudge that I followed, and it went against all the industry norms. It was like, okay, you're going to widen your niche. You want to help everyone to understand their intuition, because I'm watching people around me suffering with mental illness, suffering with lack of self-trust, being so hard on themselves, and they're not coaches. They're not intuitives. They're just everyday people. And I'm like, I could help you. And, but I'm so niched that I can't, and you don't know that I can. So that became a problem. And I felt like trapped in my niche. I was like, it has to be coaches. I can only coach coaches. And I started to just get so angry and irritable about it. But anyway, long story short, that lesson just really taught me the importance of, listening to those nudges. And so I love having this conversation of unlearning and listening to the nudges, the inner guidance. The other thing that I got from what you were saying, just from like kind of reading between the lines, that I'm like, oh my gosh, essentially what you are saying with peak potential and that whole experience and trusting the nudges, is that our success is not an accident, even when it seems like it is. And that's what I was getting out of that, was that, usually when we follow intuitive nudges to create success, unless you are an intuitive yourself and you know about this mindfully, you're going to say it's by accident. Right. I have a client I'm working with right now, and she has a very successful podcast. It's like ranking in the top 5 in Canada, or on iTunes, it might even be top 5 on iTunes. So, she does pretty well with that. And she was, oh shoot, I forget where I was going with this. My brain just went blank on me.
Trying to think of what you were saying before you brought her in.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, oh shoot, I got into the stream of it, and then I forgot what my introductory point was, and I'm like, oh shoot, you got lost in what you were saying.
What's cool about that intuitively is, as soon as you brought her energy in, now you're reading more than just what's here, and it's bringing someone else in. And so intuitively, this is how I teach it with the Akashic records.
Yeah.
Other people's energy is in tune with it. They have to be kind of like in tune as well. So anyway, I mean, not that it's a huge deal, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing. And I had
I
a
like
mind
that.
fart earlier too. So it's always, but I
Yeah.
remember my mind fart. So we talked a little
You
bit
go.
about like depression in the industry. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of jumping around here, but
That's okay.
the only way that I talked about depression in my business personally was when I was talking about my healing journey and talking about what kind of sparked me wanting to become a coach. But I didn't ever, until this day right now, talk about depression in my business and talk about the mental health issues of coming out of the spiritual closet and sharing openly and vulnerably online and remaining authentic is actually a really crazy thing to try and do, because we're like talking about a healing journey that's super personal and talking about what we're going through, which is very in depth. And it's almost like, who are you to be sad if you get to stay home all day and build this business? Like, you can't possibly be sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I do that kind of to myself, and it's probably a subconscious thing. But then again, like, there's that pressure. Like, I'm not home to stay in bed all day and do some dishes on my downtime. Like, I'm here to like work and to do the things and to reach the people. And that's when meditating kind of becomes part of my work. But it's really a fine line of whether or not it's going to be a positive thing. And I lay down to meditate and it's a beautiful channeled message and I internalize it for myself first. And then I have to kind of ask my guides, like, how much of this can I share? How much of this is okay to share? Because it is such a personal journey, and it's easy for me personally to overshare a little bit of what I found in the astral realms or what have you. And it gets to the point sometimes where it will feel almost icky to share about it. So I think that this really brings it down to earth, and I'm able to talk about the mental capacity part where you really do have limits. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're really good at like just banging those limits as hard as we can.
Yeah.
Like, I only worked 3 hours today, but like in those 3 hours, I was hustling so hard and talking to so many people and, you know, doing so many things, like just writing email summaries or creating content for a course. I mean, can we just talk about how hard that is?
Oh my God, I'm loving this so much, because this is a thing I struggle with, is looking at my 9 to 5 people around me and being like, how do I justify my lifestyle to you?
Right.
And not that you have to, but there is this part of your brain, like there is this part of my brain that is like, maybe I should make myself relatable to my family, or like maybe I should be, you know, like proving that I did as much work as I could in those 4 hours that I was on the computer. It wasn't a waste of time. And I'm getting better now at giving myself the freedom to just have a different lifestyle than the people around me and let them catch up with it. But it can be really hard. Especially because you're in the process of unlearning, like you were saying, and you're going through this unlearning. And then at the same time, the people around you are embodying what you're trying to unlearn. So that is also something that I just wanted to emphasize that came up. The other thing I wanted to emphasize that you were saying too was, shoot, where did it go? Oh man, there's like so much stuff that you said. And I was like, okay, keep this in your head, keep this in your head, keep this in your head. And now they're all like,
I did the exact same.
But yeah, I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to too, is just with the intuitive entrepreneurship journey. That's where I was going to go. You have such personal and intimate things happening within you. And at the same time, you want to lead the way for other people too. And I have battled with that in my mind too, as how much is too much sharing. And there have been times where I've shared intuitive downloads thinking, yes, this is great. And then felt an icky feeling. And I'm kind of like, I'm starting to take notice of what that felt like in my body, so that anytime I create content and get that feeling, which for me is kind of like in my lower abdomen and just feels like kind of like in my lower stomach. So when I feel that feeling, and then I feel kind of like, I don't even know how to explain how I feel. Yeah, there's just lots of weird feelings. And so when I feel that, I'm like, okay, is this something I'm sharing out of, you know, I have to share, I'm an intuitive entrepreneur? Or is there a reason I'm sharing this? You know, is this inspired content, or is this an intimate, private like part of my healing journey that's not ready to be shared yet? And I think that's a huge thing too, is being a healer who's leading others, who's an entrepreneur, and going through the incredible challenges that we do go through as healers, because we're so intuitively sensitive. We are unlearning. Our environment is kind of not the most conducive to what we're going through. And then we have the online industry too. So it makes so much sense. So getting into that peak potential can be really hard to do with all these challenges. And you also brought up energetic capacity too. So I'm assuming, and I'll ask you to elaborate on this, but I'm assuming that energetic capacity, honoring it, has something to do with peak potential, probably.
Right. So peak potential would be, I feel good, things are working, or at very least, I'm trusting myself to follow these nudges. The universe is on my side. Everything's working out in my favor, all of these beautiful things. And then energetic capacity is, what am I going to do with that energy? I have this beautiful nudge to go out and to do these things. Okay. And now I have Trello boards, which are, just
I do know what you mean.
I love Trello boards, but they're just a way of checking things off the list. And I started making these lists of all the things I need to do. And then I was like, holy crap, Mindy, you could employ 5 people full time to do all these things.
Yeah.
And we have all of these coaches online, or I should say business strategists, saying post 3 times a day on Instagram and twice a day in your Facebook group, and go live once a week and twice a week if you can, and promote your services here. So we're constantly pulled in so many different directions. And what people really need to understand on this journey is all of it could be correct. Like, it really doesn't matter which of the many things that you do, because you could be on Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube. I mean, there's so many places to be. And now we've got TikTok, Instagram, and like, you're surrounded by all these people who have 30,000 followers and 30,000 likes on one thing. And you're over here like, I just put my whole heart and soul into this post. Universe, where the heck are you? Because I got 2 likes, but I felt like it was good. Like, it was way good. So, again, with the comparison thing and productivity thing. So it really is about what you can handle. And that would be that capacity of, here's how big I am as an empowered coach online. This is what I can do. Not listening to people telling me to rise up, not listening to people telling me to ground down. This is just about what I feel. And again, what you said, like, just empowering yourself to say, I get to live a different lifestyle. Like, it just gets to work different for me.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people out there saying, I'm a diva. Like, I like things to be easy. I just want to be able to copy and paste this and call it a day. And they're making millions of dollars, like, quite literally. And I think a lot of people misinterpret too how massive of an industry this is. I mean, there are people making 7 figures. There are people making 6 figures a month. And I've had people in my personal experience be like, I just want to smack you when you say that, because there's just no way. And I'm like, look at it. Look at it. You can't deny, and so when I heard that, it was almost like, get down to earth, like, take your dreams minus 10 off the top and then divide it, So it's like, small minds can't think on that level. And of course, there's that judgment of, I've been doing this for 3 years.
Me too.
Yeah.
It'll be 4 years in August. Yeah. August 1st, 2017. Fun fact.
Oh, mine's November. That's so cool.
Oh my God. I had a feeling we started at the same time. A lot of us did in 2017, almost like a little class. Like, we all like came together at once and grew together. Tangent.
And I love that, because it puts us on so much the same page,
Yes.
And there's a lot of people who are in this same boat as we are, which is like, we're trying as hard as we can. We've quit the 9 to 5, or we're looking to quit the 9 to 5. And then we're in this sort of free fall. And it's just like, holy crap, this is like next level stress and pressure. Really, so again, just understanding what you can handle as a human made of flesh and bone. Don't try to be in all the places at once. Just do what feels right and repurpose that content. As a business strategist, that's the best thing I can tell people to do, is like this live stream. I'll re-listen to it. I'll write down some key notes. And there's probably 6 different Facebook posts in this live stream. And then it could be a blog post. And then it could be repurposed here or there.
Yeah, so, you are actually a genius. I know that sounds common sense, but like, I would repurpose this. Like, obviously I'm recording this to share on my podcast, and we're going live in a Facebook group. But I would never have thought to go through and make like little notes like that, and make like written content as well from this. Like, that makes so much sense. Like, this is something, anyway, You're a
Yeah,
genius.
especially the little tidbits. I think there was something that you said earlier. I'd have to rewatch it, but there was one little sentence that you said, and I just was like, graphic. Like that right there is a perfect, and then you're quoting yourself, So quote, this beautiful, amazing thing that changed everybody's life, end quote, Quinn Downie. There it is on Instagram, and then repurpose it everywhere. So yeah, I think that's the biggest piece to take away as far as the business strategy part of entrepreneurship is you're going to get overwhelmed. Like, hands down, it's going to happen. So copy and paste things as you want to. Pick 3 platforms max to be on all the time, because the engagement is such a big part and reaching people is such a big part. But it's so easy for the engagement piece to become a chore. And then you're commenting on people's live streams, you're commenting on their graphics, being like, you go, girl.
Yeah. Thankfully, I refuse to do that. I have been pretty good at being like, okay, I'm only going to engage with content if it inspires a reaction from me, not just to be like, okay, check, did I engage with enough content to boost the algorithm in my favor? Because you can tell, like you can, the energy of those kinds of comments come through immediately. So I think it's best to do. I think that was just a good little nugget of wisdom too, is like doing these tasks authentically. And the engagement, like you said, is really, really important. And in fact, in my opinion, I get more excited over in like legitimate, like authentic engagement than I do over the amount of followers or the amount of anything actually in my business. Because engagement means that what you are talking about, the message behind your business, the essence behind your business, is moving people to engage with you, some stranger on the internet.
It's resonating with them and creating a response that makes them want to connect to you. And the way that we connect isn't just in follows and likes. That's the lowest vibration of really reacting to content. The best reaction would be an inbox, for them to be like, I love you, I want you, this is it. And that can absolutely happen. But usually it starts in comments, and people are like, this is absolutely incredible. I can't believe you nailed it for me. You've got to be in my head. And when you start getting those messages where people are like, how did you know to say that to me today?
Oh, God,
and that's when I'm just like, peak potential. Like, I'm here.
Peak potential. Yes. So I love that. So just to reflect back what you're saying for the audience as well. So peak potential is sort of that state where we're honoring our capacity, and would you say honoring our unique way of doing things as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Honoring our own unique
for everyone.
I love that so much. What I'm also loving too, I've been noticing in the background, is everything you're saying about like the tools that you use and the ideologies that you use are so like, there's more spiritual in nature, and I tend to use a little bit more psychology, but they're saying the same thing. And like, that's what gets me so excited about spirituality and psychology, is seeing how like everything you're saying is basically what I learned in school. Just I was taught these things because the brain versus these things because your energy, but it was really the same thing, just different lenses. So I think that this is just such incredible wisdom, and it shows how tapping into looking at ourselves as more than just thoughts and feelings, but also looking at our overall energy and its capacity and its potential. You can really see where that would help people when they are hitting these mental health challenges as entrepreneurs, or in general, actually, to be honest. The other thing I just wanted to say real quick is I love that you brought up not talking about depression, because that was the same thing for me too. Is the only reason I became a life coach was because of my story with depression, not because I had it, but I went through this incredible healing journey that made me think, okay, I want to help others. And I was going to become a psychotherapist. And then I jumped into life coaching, and suddenly I don't even really know how it happened, but I do. But the industry's dynamics kind of make you feel like you need to present yourself as a business coach for other coaches. And this dynamic was really strong in 2017 when I started. And somehow I ended up being this type of coach that was in alignment with me in some regards, and then a lot of regards not. Was more based on what I thought I have to do and should do in order to be successful, and not really what my heart is, where my heart was. And my heart was more around mental wellness and like supporting people from within, like for their internal stamina, regardless of if it makes them money or not. And one thing I noticed was I didn't tell anyone in the online space. I didn't want anyone to know about my history with depression. And yet that's the whole thing that inspired my calling in the first place. And it's the only reason that I am able to connect with people as deeply and intimately as I can. If I didn't have depression, I wouldn't have, I'm convinced anyway, I wouldn't have the depth of gifts that I have. Like my intuition has been strengthened by my mental illness, as weird as that sounds, but
No,
I know you get it. Yeah.
I'm with you there.
So talking about it was just something I never did. And I remember just recently, I'm going to bring up another person, please do not go blank, but she was like, you need to, you need to, you need to talk about mental health more. Like I know so many people who are going through these experiences and I didn't even know that you like, have, 8 years of university experience and your own story that you've never told. And she's like, where has the story been? And I was like, I wasn't ready to share it. And
yeah,
that was a big thing, sharing that too. But it also goes to show how the dynamics of our industry also have this sort of pressure to never show your weak side. Like we're always saying to each other, be vulnerable, show up authentically. And I really do believe that that's the way to go. Like that's how you're going to connect with people. Yeah. That's scary. And it's really hard to be vulnerable in a space where everyone's like also at the same time telling you that you need to be the expert and always show up as your ultimate best. So it can be very confusing when you're trying to just be vulnerable and share your experiences with, honestly, mental illness. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of healers such as you and me, like we're not the only ones who have these histories with mental illness that brought us on this path, that we just feel like I can't share the story in this space. So I just wanted to, I guess, draw emphasis on that because I thought that was a really relatable experience.
I agree. And I feel like it's okay to be vulnerable as far as the online space goes. It's like, it's okay to be vulnerable as long as you're on the other side and you're talking about an experience that you have overcome to now reach where you are. And I can share about it now because I've completed the process, and that's kind of how I've always looked at it is it's okay to talk about stuff I went through in high school. I'll talk about my adolescence all day long, but being a mom and putting on all of these hats and being in multiple places at once and then deciding to renovate a home on top of that, okay, let's just take that capacity and just stretch it. And now I feel like I am stretched in this really uncomfortable way, which is awesome to push myself. But again, the amount of times that I'm just in bed refusing to do anything because, oh my gosh, it's too much. I just don't talk about it because it's like, I know when I go and get my kids, my parents are gonna be like, so what'd you get done today?
Yes.
Like, oh, little do you know. And so we also tie in money. Like if I'm making money, then I'm doing a good job. If I'm not making money, I'm out of alignment. And there's a little bit to that because if you're in your optimal state of manifestation, sure, money comes easy. It feels easy. You feel like a magnet. But we're also going through a human experience. So it's important not to judge what the highs and lows are going to be because it's just going to happen that way. And, so sharing vulnerably about those highs and lows in the mental capacity and how it reflects the outer world, depending on what you're going through inside. So yes, it's okay to stretch yourself. But again, when it starts to feel like chaos and you can't get out of bed, it's just time to reconnect to the core of where you began. And for me, like what you were saying, a lot of healers have this history of depression. And the way that I always explain the beginning of my business was about 2015. I was just done. I was in this really depressed, super manic state. I wouldn't leave my house. I refused to leave my house at all, but I was still very a spiritual person, from when I was 6 years old. I always knew that I was connected to something higher.
Me too. Yeah.
So I found myself in this state of lying on the floor and just being I'm done. Don't try to ask me of anything because I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
And I had this crazy nudge to get up and put on an outfit. It was get up and get dressed because I'm one of those girls that has a whole lot of clothes that I'm not ever going to wear.
I love it.
So the universe was just kind of put the clothes on, just wear the things that you bought. And it's cowgirl hat, button up, shorts. And then I was just go dancing, just go out alone because my whole depression thing was about a social situation where I basically had everybody that I considered a friend turn on me like in
Me too.
one giant year of
Me too.
madness. And so I just had this really lonely feeling. Like I felt like I lost my daughter. I felt like I lost my boyfriend. I felt like I lost every friend I'd ever had. And I was just like not going to leave my house because there was nobody to celebrate with. So I went through my birthday with nowhere to go. I went through, all of this really lonely place where I only had my mom. Like that was it. And I just was like, this is not how I'm going to live. And it ended up leading me to Costa Rica. I went ahead and studied abroad because I was like, I can't be here and I'm not going to totally decease and
Yes.
leave the physical
Yes.
plane.
Yeah.
So I need to go somewhere else. And that was a bucket list item. I wanted to study abroad and study biology in the rainforest. And so I did that because it was my way of reconnecting to something that I knew was me. And so having that whole story kind of come together is I did go dancing. I met a new group of friends. I went and danced my heart out for months and months and months, and then studied in Costa Rica and was able to get my hands in that dirt and just play in the rainforest and see these groups of monkeys like flying all over me. And, it was just a recalibration to
Yeah.
you don't need this weird life stuff. If those people wronged you or there was this whole, crazy non-justice that happened, okay, you have to send them love. You have to be done with it. Come back to just being you. And that experience really led me to my business.
Oh my God. This is so beautiful. I'm so glad that you shared this. Thank you so much for sharing it. And it's actually so similar to how my depression originated too, because there was a huge social anxiety component because when I was in grade 7 and grade 8, my entire class and the other class and my friend's school as well, a neighboring school, all turned on me. For no specific reason. There was really no like falling out. It was just these traits of me that they didn't like. And it was, I don't know, this is so funny. I didn't know this was going to come up. I'm like, wow, this is really, I like this. But it is a little emotional, but I come from like a really privileged, wealthy background. And that was something I got attacked for, was just, Little Miss Perfect was what they used to call me. Always raising her hand. She's smart and she's got like, so they ended up making me feel like I had done something wrong by having a good life. And it wasn't for a few months, it was for 2 years. And it was every day of my life for 2 years. So the conditioning, like I didn't understand it at the time, but looking back, I'm like, what kind of conditioning would 2 years of bullying, abuse, like to the point where even if I hid in the bathroom, they would find me. Like there was no escape until high school. Looking back, I'm like, no wonder mental illness became a part of my life. Like that was a young age. I didn't have the tools or the resilience to know how to see the bigger picture or to even understand why these people were upset with me. And I started to tell myself that I wasn't good enough. But anyway, I don't want to make it all about my story. I really appreciate you sharing yours. And I really noticed that similarity between my experience and your experience. And just thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's really important because again, like how many of us have had whole life experiences before our coaching stories, like before our story of I overcame this and then I became this. Like there's so much more to us and so much more wisdom that we can tap into as a result of, I guess you could say, like what you did with Costa Rica, like find like instead of giving the priority to the environmental stressor, instead of giving the priority and the value and the power to the people who are harming us, to the situations that are harming us, or the triggers that are bringing up emotions that don't feel good in our body, is that where the power is? Or, like you said, is it time to say goodbye to those things, as much as that's hard? And these things do feel powerful and they do have a certain level of power over us, but do they have more power over us than our own consciousness and willpower and what we choose to do with this life and how we're going to live it? I think that was just so beautiful how you took that risk and went to Costa Rica by yourself. Were you by yourself?
It was with a school. So I went with a student body, basically.
Oh, okay. So kind of by yourself in a way. And that's also mind blowing because I have my experience with Bali, which is like that, where I traveled alone, but I was at the retreat group. So I did have a group with me of people. So I had that safety, but I didn't have like a travel buddy either. So I was traveling alone. And even when I was there, I was kind of alone in a good way. So I'm just really loving the similarities between our stories. And
Absolutely.
So the other thing I was thinking of going into now too is, as an intuitive entrepreneur, I know the other thing we wanted to talk about was, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter what we had organized, but I was going to say we were talking too about the aesthetics of Instagram, and I just remembered that was something that we brought up that I think a lot of people could relate to as well. And maybe not even just Instagram, just aesthetics in general, like branding, making everything look really nice. And sometimes, like, I know that can be a bit of a mind challenge for me, is, just not getting in my head about what it looks like, because I'm not an artistic person. So anyway, I know that you've had some experiences with this too, with Instagram aesthetic and your lifestyle being such an incredibly diverse blend of different interests and different experiences. So I figured, yeah, if you have anything to say on that.
Absolutely, I do. So when I first found business and found the aesthetic of the Instagram world, everything is very, like the blocks and doing a checkerboard pattern, which I think is the most beautiful way to use Instagram. I really believe that.
Yeah.
But I go camping, I have dogs, I have a backyard, I have a home renovation, I'm a spiritual entrepreneur, I'm a mama. I mean, I have so many things to post about all the time that what ended up happening was I didn't create for myself what I call a content library, where I just created the content and kept it. And this is what I suggest people do now, is create your graphics with your repurposed content, of course, and just little tidbits of information or just a little stance statement of some kind that's visually pleasing, but also very influential. Mm-hmm. And then write your caption and just save it and get like a month's worth in there. So that your launch date for your Instagram, your new and improved Instagram, would be like a month from now. So then you're just posting as you normally would post, as it feels good to do so. Because what I did was I didn't do that. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I need to create a graphic. Oh, I need to create a graphic. And so now I've got these pictures of my girls' trip that I took with my daughter sitting there, not getting posted. I've got pictures of my dogs when they were puppies. Now they're a year old, sitting there, not doing anything. So I capped myself off very quickly with Instagram, being like, okay, I need 10 selfies and I need 10 graphics, and that's all it can be. So I posted one picture of my entire pregnancy with my youngest. I just did not post about it because it wasn't business oriented. It wasn't aesthetic.
Yeah.
So yeah, how sad is that, right?
Yeah, my heart just now.
Yeah.
So I can
So
relate.
I've done it, and I've done the blocks, and I've done, where you do 2 lifestyle, 1 business. So it's almost like a little line that just kind of moves through.
Yeah.
And now I'm finally to that point. I almost scrapped my whole Instagram and started new, or had 2 Instagram, 1 for business where it's selfies and quotes, and 1 for life where I can just post freely. And then I was like, but what's the point? Like, yeah, I want to be able to have my clients look at my Instagram as an example and be like, here's what I want you to do as a business person. But do I want to suggest to them that they don't post about their life and they don't showcase the messy stuff? I mean, my life is a pretty good example of it getting really messy.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing with the aesthetic of Instagram is I think we think that we're the only ones going through the mess, and we're not. Right. It's just the mess isn't getting posted because it's not aesthetic at all. In a way, I guess, like not in a traditional way.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing too that the brands and social media contents that I follow the most and I'm drawn to the most are the ones that blend multiple motifs and tell me a story. Like, I don't just tune into posts that are business oriented. And so I thought to myself, if I engage in content this way and I'm drawn to content that is varied and expressive and unique, like, oh, this person's content does not look like someone else, like another 10 other people, like it actually is unique. Those are the things I'm most likely to follow, tune into, be attracted to. So it's funny how we put this pressure on ourselves to have these picture perfect Instagrams. And really, I think what our audience wants from us the most is just who we are, not the polished version of who we are, but who we actually are. And I think that's it's been hard for me to accept that my audience actually just wants that. Like they just want me as I am, because I mean, what have we been taught about being a successful entrepreneur or being a successful anything in life? So I guess it brings us back to what you said about unlearning and, is there, unlearning the idea that success has to be this picture perfect, no mistakes, no errors sort of thing. And that's just the part that to me always makes me laugh is if you think of the human brain, you think of our psychology, like we inevitably always make mistakes. Like we will never, ever, ever be perfect. That's not how the brain works. Like the organ we use to function is imperfect. So that might sound funny, but I figured I'd just drop that in there as like a little reminder if you guys are ever being hard on yourselves, just a reminder that perfection does not exist in the brain. And if perfection can't exist in your psyche, like it's going to be a pretty tough goal to hit.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, you have people in the coaching industry or just any marketing, online, digital, situation, whatever industry, you have people who are out there looking like they're doing it perfect. But my
Yes.
question to them is like, are they happy with it though? Because I have been
Yes.
able to kind of reach that where I'm like, okay, I'm happy with what this is looking like.
Yeah.
But I was so stressed out to make that happen. And I was not enjoying that process. And especially if you put time limits on yourself, like, okay, I need to post 3 times a week. So now you're doing one segment of Instagram each and every week to make it look a certain way. That's where you start needing to hire help and spending money in order to show up in this perfect quote unquote capacity where you're not likely to feel good. And now all of a sudden it's not you anymore. So who's going to land on your page and be like, oh, I really like her or him or whoever.
Yeah.
I like this person that I just landed on. When you're not writing the posts, you're not creating the content. Like, again, going back to what we kind of began with, this online integrity of authenticity and being able to be okay mentally and not drive yourself crazy, trying to be in too many places at once or trying to be in one place perfectly. I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong. And it's really hard for us as humans, because again, we're flesh and bone. We have a capacity. And I think it took me a while to really understand that.
Me too.
And to be okay with having these limits. Like, I don't want to say I limited myself, but I should have been like, actually, here's what you could have handled.
Yes. There is a certain level of limits that are healthy. I always think of just like back to my psychology schooling with people who have borderline personality disorder. It's just a personality disorder that's often really common with one thing that can be common among it is parents who don't have clear limits for their kids, like clear rules, clear boundaries. And it actually is hard on the developing brain. So of course, as adults, as entrepreneurs, like, it's going to be just as detrimental to us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I also love that you mentioned a little while ago about unlearning. Like, we're showing up as kind of this new breed of human, if you think about it, because the digital world has never been so heightened as it is right now, which is really beautiful because I've served people from all over the world. But again, the productivity is different, accountability is different, the pressure and the heightened state of chaos is very different too. So having that vulnerability there and being okay is a totally new, like, we're pioneers of that. And so you, as your example of your kind of healing journey of being that privileged girl, and I dealt with the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm a spiritual coach, and I've always dove into cultural theologies. And so I now have to battle the cultural appropriation arguments and people being like, who are you to use this because of the color of your skin? And you had to have grown up privileged because of what you look like. And I was like, actually, hand-me-down clothes, like everything was thrift. So there's like these presumptions that I'm battling as well. So there's this vulnerability around wanting to share things that have legitimately changed my world, like just mind blown. And I want other people to feel that too, but I don't want to step on toes, and I don't want to be seen as a certain person trying to navigate something in a way that could be perceived as wrong. So again, we're sort of unlearning being that person that we've been called, or that people have presumed about us, or, you know,
True.
or if you have money, you have to be a bad person. Like, who said that growing up in a situation that was comfortable and you didn't have to worry about money, that doesn't mean you didn't have to worry about other things. Like, you
Exactly.
can still have a childhood full of trauma and have grown up with money. And I think people lose that. Like, just because money wasn't the issue, or skin color wasn't the issue, that doesn't mean there wasn't other trauma to unlearn. So I think that's important too, because people have these different presumptions of what trauma is. And I think trauma breeds a lot of beautiful people and a lot of beautiful healers.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's important to know that no matter how you grew up, no matter what you've battled in your adolescence and going through this, what did you call it? The calibration, the negative calibration. What is it? Conditioning.
Conditioning. Yeah.
How's that for a good vocabulary word? But the conditioning of, obviously, if there are traits within me that people dislike on a wide spread, like that was my thing too. Like, a lot of people just decided one day they're not going to like me and I'm not good. And so I was like taking long looks in the mirror and being like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, everyone hates you. And like, my brain had evidence of that.
Yes.
And I didn't know differently, but I wasn't trying to surround myself with positivity either. Like, I was clinging, you know, like clinging on to that.
Yeah.
And it's so easy on a healing journey to like really identify with whatever trauma, depression, mental illness, whatever. And we say, I have depression. It's almost like an I am statement.
Yep.
So it's really important to know and to see the capacity, but then to also be like, what could I do to get myself really far away from that? Costa Rica, put on the good clothes, move out of mom and dad's, whatever it is, to surround yourself with something else, something different.
Yeah. Actually, what I'm hearing from this too is it's like choosing an environment that really allows you to grow, that really allows you to tap into your inner voice without all the noise around you distracting you from what that's supposed to look like.
Exactly.
And I love that you said that we're pioneers in many ways too, because that's another thing too that I've noticed as well, is just feeling like I'm doing something that no one else has done before me, or that is just normal. Like you go looking for a framework or something that makes your lifestyle look normal, and you're like, no, like there's no one else who's going hard with online business like this around me. And that can be really challenging too.
It definitely is, especially with that privileged notion as well. Like, we're females and we are home all day, so that means something about us, you know? Or my man goes to work all day and I'm at home doing this, whatever this quote unquote is. People don't quite understand the work that goes into it. And I had this little epiphany a couple months ago. I was like, how cool is it that on my day-to-day, what I get to do for work is like scan Pinterest and go and take those images and recalibrate them on Canva and put that in a post with a quote on it. And then, you know, go and look up all these keywords and hashtags. And I mean, it's work, but it just so happens to be aesthetic and nice and like look cute. And not to say that the whole coaching industry is about cutesy wootsy stuff, because it isn't, but it can be. And it just makes it a little bit more fun. And it makes it so that you can enjoy your work, even if you feel like you're trying to grab bits and pieces from the ethers that are like, how can I not find an image with no background that just looks like this? I just want it to look like this. So,
oh my God.
You know, you end up creating, and it's just a beautiful thing.
That's so true too, because I was originally going to be a therapist. So before I started life coaching, like that's all I was prepared for, was just like learning therapy and mental health counseling. Like that's all. So I never would, I used to always say I'll never be an entrepreneur. It's only because of my calling that I am one. Like I was so against the idea. It just seemed like a lot of stress until life drew me down this path. And sometimes I'll have moments where I'm like, I'm again, design challenged all the way through. It does not come naturally to me. And I'm
Right.
making graphics and I'm like, did you ever think this was going to be your life, Quinn? Like this part of it, I mean, and I don't mind it. I love it. It's so much fun. And it's also exercising a new muscle in my brain. But
Right.
sometimes like I catch myself doing the online tasks for my business and being like, is this what you thought this was going to be? Like, this is so fascinating. Like, how did becoming a therapist with your own practice become this?
Right.
And I love it. Like, it's just such a unique path, and we are such pioneers. And I think it's just a really positive note to end this conversation on, is just being an intuitive is already stressful enough. Like just being someone who has gone through, a lot of us have gone through trauma, a lot of us have histories of mental illness. And even if you don't, being sensitive in general is in and of itself traumatizing, actually, in a way, you know, like maybe not to the extreme, it depends, but it can, even that is a really challenging experience because our world is a little insensitive. So being sensitive in an insensitive world can cause definitely some stress. And then on top of that, choosing to say, okay, I'm going to show up as an entrepreneur with my intuitive gifts and help people through intuition, which is, you know, very new, and not new in the sense that it's never happened before, but new to the Western world, like new to our corner of the world and our reality. And so it is this very interesting journey of healing yourself, also helping to heal others, and then also at the same time carving a path into an unknown, uncharted territory of entrepreneurship. So you're literally just doing so many things that are going to put a strain on your mental health. And so there's no shame. Like if you get nothing else from this conversation, just know that there is no shame in feeling vulnerable, in feeling like your mental health is, I don't know, I had a lot of shame. I used to say, like, ever since I started my business, I'm mentally unstable, was something I would hear myself say a lot. And I was like, this is just really tough because that's not how I envision myself helping others. Like, I want to be fully stable. And so what I've come to understand is that the experience of entrepreneurship isn't stable. So, being mentally stable is a huge amount of pressure to put on yourself. So I've now been practicing, how can I give myself more compassion along this journey? How can I, do my best, but honestly, how can I prioritize my well-being first? Because my well-being is where the intuitive wisdom comes from. And it's where the best sessions with my clients come from. So how can I prioritize my well-being, my energetic, mental, physical, all of it well-being as I carve this path forward? And all of us need different things in order to do that. But how can you honor what you need in order to do that, in order to make this path more true to you and your best interests?
Right.
And I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Mindy, at all as we wrap up around any of this, or any last words or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I love what you said about self-care and prioritizing that. And we say it a lot of the times. And a lot of people out there saying, just take care of yourself and the rest will fall into place. But there's this trust that needs to happen with yourself, your intuition, and whatever higher sources you believe in. Sure. Because really what we're really wanting people to understand here, like our journey is to say, this is what we've been through. This is how crazy it got. This is what we've had to do to recalibrate. And it's really going back to basics. It's like, you just need food, water, and sunlight. Because like I said, if I get stressed out, I shut down, like I stop things. So I think it's important when you reach that point is to just understand that your capacity has been reached. You are overextended. And so it's important to come back to food, water, sunlight. Always start with those things first. And then move to like a shower and brushing your teeth and just do those really key, really basic self-care things, and then not putting too much pressure on yourself to make self-care a production. Yes. Because I've done that too, where it's like, I need to meditate because I didn't do my self-care today, or I need to run to the gym because I didn't do my self-care yet today. Yep. But sometimes it looks like doing the laundry just to get it off the floor. Like sometimes that's just what you need to do. And as entrepreneurs, it's like, but that's not work. That's not me working. So it's not okay for me to go and do that. When in reality, like you said, I have to feel ready for client calls. I have to feel ready for a live stream. And when the laundry is all over surrounding me all the time, I'm just kind of like, oh, I can do this. I can do this.
Oh my God.
Tunnel vision, like trying
Tunnel
to
vision.
block things out. And that's not the way. I think the way is more just take little bits and pieces, small bites, baby steps, do what you can, and perform from a place of wanting to do it. And I think it's really easy to get to that space where it's like, I just don't want to do anything. So if you're there, if that's where you are, just know that that just means you've put too much on your plate. You have too much going on. You're feeling a state of chaos, and it's okay to get to that point. But just know that productivity is something that's a conditioning, a human condition. And knowing this accessibility of energy, you do have limits. So use that capacity as your tool and say, okay, I'm going to be at 30% today because I don't want to get out of bed, let alone be productive.
Yep.
So if you give yourself 30%, that's still better than zero. And I think that that's really important for people battling the depression thing, is just bare minimum. And, I had a coach that taught those daily core minimums. Just do the minimums, and then everything above and beyond that, you really, really feel good about it. It's like, oh, I did my minimum, like
Yes.
my inboxes,
Yeah.
and, maybe wrap up things from yesterday or whatever your core minimums are. And then if you happen to clean the house or you happen to do this, you're like, oh, look at me, I'm doing above and beyond.
I love
So
that.
kind of set those for yourselves and see how it changes your productivity and how you feel around productivity. I think that's important.
Yes. And you said something that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so divine, because you mentioned tunnel vision. And I was just doing reading recently on how tunnel vision is a pretty, like, I don't want to say cause, but is connected to depression. So it's going to be like, it's a bit of a risk factor for your mental illness. So when we approach our businesses with tunnel vision and we're not doing the laundry and we're not taking care of our environments and we're not addressing the other sides of ourselves and aspects of our life that aren't entrepreneurship, we actually are building ourselves, up to experience a certain level of depression, even if it's not like clinical depression, but a depressed mood. It's not going to be good for your mind to approach it that way. Yeah. And the other thing is it even really good for your bank account? When I do that tunnel vision stuff, it's not like it shows a huge increase in profit for me.
Right.
So, if we're going to be expending our mental health to make money, first of all, that's something to look at. But second of all is also, is it even working? Is that even working? And if it's not, then really, what is the benefit of continuing to push yourself in such a way? But I love what Mindy said, where it's like, don't pressure yourself. You don't necessarily need to put that pressure on yourself to turn everything over really fast and perform and do self-care properly and all of that. It's a journey. And I love the idea of the energetic minimums and, just having that compassion of one step at a time. And I really do believe that if we approach our success in a more one step at a time fashion, the success we achieve is more likely to last long term.
Right.
As well.
Exactly.
We'll be able to sustain it. Yes.
And the sustainability. Yes. So that goes all hand in hand with that peak potential and the capacity thing. Like if you're at your peak potential and it feels good to feel productive and you're just like, yeah, I'm just in strides, I'm taking things at this really beautiful pace. I think that's the biggest lesson here, is that your core essence deserves that piece of energy that's just open and feels ready and feels, I want to say productive, but that's just so not the right word, because then we have the pressure. So is a pressure-free, limitless channel of energy that you can call upon, and you do so by taking action, but it's inspired action. It's action that feels good to do and produce, because you can be proud of what you've done and you can look back on your work and be like, I did that. How cool is that? And just celebrate yourself. And that's something that is, it's like that putting yourself on a pedestal thing. Like, oh, I'm so proud of myself. I got out of bed and brushed my teeth. Like, how cool.
Yeah.
But you really do need to do that, especially with the depression thing.
Because even just basic self-care with depression is really hard. Like there was a time in my life where brushing my teeth or getting out of bed was like climbing a mountain. Right. And I think that that's the time where like, it's kind of like those healthy limits we talked about, like limitation in a healthy way. Like it's good to be limitless, but to also have limits. Sounds like a paradox, but the limits that support your growth and not restrict your growth.
Right. Limits as far as what you feel like you should do. Like releasing the shoulds is one of the best things that we can do. Like I should go and do the laundry, but I want to go on a walk with the dogs. Like if you take the dogs on a walk, you're going to get nudges. You're going to have channeled messages come through because you followed that nudge. But like you were saying earlier, you could go and take a bath with your incense and your oils and your crystals and be like, okay, I'm here, universe. I'm in the tub. Okay,
give me money.
I'm ready. And
ready to
have it
receive.
not work, you know, because the pressure is there. So take a bath if it feels right. Go on a walk if it feels right. Do the laundry if it feels right. And of course, work your way to a point where you're sitting at the computer, you're writing, you're creating, and you're putting that content out there. That's obviously going to be sort of that end goal, but feel ready. Allow yourself to get ready for it. Right. Before you just wake up at 7 a.m. and you're like, okay, day's started. I'm working from 7 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever. I have to be in this chair. The thing is in a 9 to 5, you're not working. You're scrolling Facebook, you're going on bathroom breaks. You're like, oh, I done like, you know, I answered the phone 5 times. Cool. You know, now I'll put in these things. Cool. And we work in increments. But once it's an entrepreneurial thing, that's no longer okay. To work in increments and to take your time and be like, I get paid by the hour. Like,
exactly.
Maybe I'll do stuff, maybe I won't, you know. As a secretary, I lived that way and it was fine. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, it's no longer okay. So I have to now recalibrate myself to these energetic ups and downs where I just feel like I'm in strides, where the up is 1 foot and the down is another foot. And so instead of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, it's 1 step forward, breathe, take a minute, smell the roses, there's another step, you know. So it's this core essence that we're tapping into that, yes, is a part of us, but is also a life force that we can tap into. And that's what I teach in my programs. Like right now I have a medicine person certification. I'm certifying people to become a medicine person, which is really about taking your transformation story and calibrating yourself back to that core essence of who you are. Bucket list things that you've overcome, challenges that you're facing now, maneuvering that. And I really draw in a lot of sacred knowledge from across the world. I mentioned cultural knowledge. So I have a whole disclaimer about the cultural appropriation, basically saying I've been asked to share this from the astral realms. Like I wouldn't share it if I didn't feel like the world's ready for it. Like it really is time. And so I think that the certification piece just gives people permission. It's just this want, I think, from the human psyche to be like, I deserve to be here and I deserve to share this and I can teach it. So that's really the methodology of the certification. And what I've done is paired the medicine person, so healing, transformation, with the Akashic records, which is ascension, spirit guides, bonding with spirit guides, past life stuff, really spending time in calibrating and attuning to the Akashic realm, which is just the other side, spirit world, you know, whatever you want to call it. But in Sanskrit, it's Akash or Akasha. So the Akashic records is just where you go. I think of it more as a place. Some people think of it as an open book or a library, which is fine too, because it's information.
Yeah.
I think of it more
as a place. I do too. Yeah. I've done a few guided Akashic explorations, and it's the book powerful. Thing never really, it is. Yeah. Seriously. The book thing never really got me into that state. I kind of had to like open a door. And so place. Yeah. Me
too. And how I teach it is we go through the door and then everything that you see is divine for your Akashic record. And so we incorporate the book because I'm obviously there to certify people. But the book is for specific questions. So if you have
sorry, I meant like visualizing a book to get into the records, the actual. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. So it's just a way to transcribe and to channel messages. And a lot of people come back from it and they're just like, I didn't see anything. Oh, but I saw this necklace. oh, but I saw this thing.
The
Oh, but I
thing.
saw this thing. You did see things, like
Yeah.
you're doing it, you're seeing things, and people write it down and then they'll come back to it and be like, I really saw that. Like you have to see it in your own handwriting to really remember, because
Yeah.
you walk away and you forget.
Right.
So weird
It's like
until you
remembering a
have that.
dream. Yeah,
Mhm.
which
It
doesn't
is.
happen often. Yeah.
And
Or it's, it's harder.
I always suggest that people keep a dream journal too, because once you start diving into this spiritual stuff and like attuning to opening yourself up to be a channel, your dreams get crazy. Like you have
Oh,
crazy dreams.
because mine have been getting nuts these days. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder if this has anything to do with just me being more true to myself. Cause like they've been wild. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, I don't usually even remember my dreams. But
It's
anyway.
important to write stuff down.
Yeah.
And there was a time where I found a sticky note. Like I have no recollection of writing it to this day, but I found a sticky note in my handwriting that was like, in a boat, two bears ran up to my boat, swam to my boat, and they started talking to me. And then at the bottom, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we knew what the bears said? And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
okay, well, I guess these bears are trying to contact me. Like, how do I find them now? You know, but again, no recollection of it. I just found the sticky note. So I have this whole entire module that I'm creating to go with this program about effective note taking, because it's
Ooh.
super important to be able to organize your notes either
Yeah.
online, which is, I probably recommend online first. But if you're going to take notes in a notebook, do it in a like a snap open, so you can take pages and move them, because there's times where you channel and then you go off on a tangent and then you channel again and it's like, oh, I need to move that here and move this here.
Yep. That
So
makes sense.
yeah.
I
And
love that.
so that's the program that I have now. I'm also incorporating online marketing, and it's really a catered to you program. Right now, I'm teaching it one-on-one. It will eventually be a self-paced thing where you can do this on your own time. But right now, there's a lot of that one-on-one support to do the online marketing, because there are so many ways that we can utilize Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Facebook, all of the things. So I think it's important that we work together to see what's going to work best for each individual, because it really is a very cruel world out there.
Seriously, it's seriously like there's lots of goodness too, but
Yeah.
it is quite the world.
Yeah, especially on the digital space. Like once you start going digital and deciding that's where your voice is going to be heard,
Yeah.
you have bad reactions sometimes. You have the cultural appropriation argument sometimes.
Oh
You've
yeah.
got the privilege
Yeah.
thing
Well,
sometimes. And
yeah.
so, you know, it's really important to position yourself and protect yourself. So there's this energetic kind of ball of protection that I always suggest people do, just because we want our posts and what we have to reach the right people. And so we want that channel to remain very powerful with us and the universe as we put our words out there. But also that ball of protection not only serves as a magnet, but can serve as repelling for any negativity too.
I love that. I need to do that more often, because sometimes I will post posts that are so vulnerable and get good engagement, but there's times where I get engagement. I'm like, how did I attract that? Like, where did you even come from? Like, I don't even.
Yeah.
I'll be like some guy, and he's like, I'll be your sugar daddy, and I'm like, where did you come
Right.
from? Like, you're not even a follower. How did you find my stuff?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And they don't tell us about that. You know, they don't say like, hey, as soon as you start posting selfies online, like you're gonna get your inbox bombarded with like dudes.
Seriously, oh my God. Like just the message request area, like, you know, the request area. Yeah, that's where it all ends up being. So I don't even know about it. And then I go in it and there's like 100 of, and I'm like, the fuck, how did I? So anyway,
Yeah.
one of the many things that just don't want to attract to my business. So I think that's such great advice with the energetic protection.
Yeah,
But yeah, thank you so much, Mindy, for this conversation.
of
Thank you
course.
so much for sharing openly. And I've just been enjoying every part of this so much. I think this is my first time publicly talking about mental health with another person. You know, like I've done a
Right.
few TikToks and stuff on my own, but this is huge. So thank you for having this conversation with me and for inviting me into your group space to share it as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So where can anybody listening to my podcast find you and your offers after listening to this conversation?
Of course. So I'll have a link set up, but like I said, I'm working everything one-on-one right now, and there will be links eventually, but I'm working with a VA to make that all happen. So right now, the best way to get a hold of me is to email hello.mountainmedicine mountainmedicine@gmail.com, or I have a Facebook group called Intuitive Coaches Healing the World with Mountain Medicine. So Intuitive Coaches is the one to remember, and then Healing the World with Mountain Medicine is kind of that piece of me that's, we're here to heal. It's full of a lot of healers and spiritual entrepreneurs. So if you're just looking for support on this journey, it's a really great place to be, and just ask questions and talk about where you are, because there's a lot of Reiki healers. There's a lot of people doing Akashic records, doing tarot readings, things like that in there. So a lot of people who really know the language and know what you're going through, kind of like how Quinn and I mean, we're just so on the same page, and the synchronicities on our story is just so mirror images of each other. It's almost like freaky. Like,
and we didn't know that before this conversation.
Person.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we didn't know this until this conversation. You just started sharing things, and I'm like, me too.
Right. But that's me. But that's me. But that's me.
Me too. Yeah. I love that.
I do too.
It always just makes me so happy.
So yeah, connect. And where can people find you if they're looking on my group?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So same for me, email at quinn@quinndownie.com. And then I also do have a link that I could share in the comments underneath this to just information about my one-on-one sessions. I combine psychology and spirituality to help people to trust their intuition and build trust in themselves. So I can also share a link to that underneath this live stream with more information. And then Mindy, I'll add your links as well to my podcast when I get everything published. I think there's a space anyway. My podcast is super new, but I'm going to see if I can share those links as well physically.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Me too. And we'll be on YouTube as well. So
yes,
make sure that it all goes either up or down or wherever around.
That's
the
true.
video. But for me, mostly it's hello.mountainmedicine@gmail.com. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone listening. And for those of you watching the live stream, thank you so much for attending live, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, we will see you.
Bye.